Uh, Fred Matiang'I is the talk of town. He has received what one would view as a lion's share of political talk in this country for a while now. In fact, early last year, I tweeted saying people were saying Matiang'I was in the country when he wasn't, because I was sure he had been attending a function in Atlanta where Mother Karua was. So one might want to ask themselves, why are people talking about Matiang'I? Of course, Matiang'I is one of the 5 or so presidential candidates we have. Uh, uh, the political parties have fronted their generals. Honorable Kioni introduced Matiang'I to the country as a presidential candidate for Jubilee, just as we have Eugene Wamalwa for DAP, Kalonzo for WIPE, and so on and so forth. So Matiang'I is receiving more than what would be normal share of public limelight. And I've been asking myself why. Uh, I've also heard people saying Matiang'I is just another wannabe. He's not a serious candidate. Perhaps those ones will be going too far because it's in public domain, public knowledge, that actually Uhuru and Raila, when they entered into their handshake and introduced BBI, their agreement was that in 2022, the two were going to support Matiang'I Mutai Kagwe ticket. So Matiang'I is not just another boy you've met in the streets of perhaps Keroka or somewhere in Keumbo where people sell sugarcane and so on and so forth. He's a political force on his own right. And that explains why many people are talking about Matiang'I. I know there are many negatives that people are also mentioning. We would expect Matiang'I to come out in the public and explain to the people of Kenya why he thinks he deserves to be their candidate. But I would quickly say there's a lot going for Matiang'I. First, the people of this country are sort of agreed in some way that they have had enough of the usual politicians. So Matiang'I not being the usual politician, that works for him. Secondly, the people of this country want a worker. I think politicians have let us down. So Matiang'I has that again going for him, because when he was minister in ICT, education, interior, he was just about the only visible minister you could put your hand on. So when Kenyans say they are looking for a worker, Matiang'I quickly comes into mind. Something else that seems to be working in the favor of Matiang'I is that when Gen Zs are trying to search, the name Matiang'I seems to appear a lot more than the names of other people who seem to be what Gen Zs are looking for. So I'll just say that it's not for nothing that everybody in the country is talking about Matiang'I. It's not for nothing that his coming has elicited a lot of excitement. Of course, not everybody is happy with him, but but the truth is that Matiang'I is on almost everybody's lips. And like I've explained, there's a lot going for Matiang'I. Whether or not he makes use of that to his advantage is another story. Those close to Matiang'I, like Onyonka, will perhaps have to point two things to him. One, that many candidates have come out, not necessarily in Kenya, with a lot going for them, but they have never exploited that. Instead, they have allowed themselves to drift into just another candidate. The second thing which people like Onyonka must deliver to Matiang'I is that when you run for office the first time, the people you encounter who spoil your campaign are a political conmen and brokers. They have a way of getting attention from you, and they have a way of making you want nothing to do with genuine people. It brings to mind the Hillary role in the Bill Clinton campaign. That more often than not, when you are running for office, especially if you are a credible candidate, there are people who specialize in chasing good men from you, good men and women, so that they remain with you, and that becomes your downfall. The famous treatise from President of Ghana, come back, Mahama, will explain what I'm talking about. That when you are in power, or especially when you are going for election and you have a good chance, there are men and women who will surround you and say the things you want to. I know you have talked a lot about
Right, Chairman seems to be all going off the grid. I'd warned you that he's joining us from Mashinani. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfectly. Just yes,
Just to wind up, I was saying Nyikal, Honorable Nyikal, our very good friend, and Onyonka, those who have run for parliamentary seats will know what I'm talking about. That even your enemies will send people to your camp when you are running, and the role they play is to sing the song you want to hear, but more importantly, to make sure people who will be useful to you leave your camp. So I'm just hoping that Matiang'I, because he comes with a lot on the table, I also can foresee a situation if the opposition were really serious about a single candidate and they are seated on that table, the ones we know so far. I'm finding it difficult to see how Matiang'I will not become the Kibaki of 2002. Thank you, Deba. I may at any one time climb down the tree from where I'm joining these spaces, say goodbye to the mosquitoes, and go back to the house and sleep. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for hanging on. Please don't go away. We're just about also to be winding up briefly. Let me come to Honorable Richard Onyonka. We saw, of course, you joining Matiang'I and welcoming him back to the country, and Hubla and Razmataz. We want to see, first of all, the choice of Jubilee, and Honorable Jeremiah Kione also will chime in and tell us, have they decided that he's going to be the presidential candidate? But from the Abagusi, you can tell us, first of all, there is also the Baraga factor. And people are saying, oh, now Baraga should actually rest his ambition because Matiang'I seems to be the ultimate candidate. So we don't want to split votes from the Kikuyu, from the Kisii region as well. What is your assessment? Do you think also Jubilee is the best outfit for Matiang'I for your region? Or there could be something in the works up the collective sleeves? We don't know what is going to happen with the mergers and the coalitions as well. That will be another question.
Thank you, Dibal. That's a very big story. I'll try and run through it. Number one, Fred came 2 days ago. As you're aware, he has been doing some consultancy work with international organizations to feed his kids after government left.
So it was not a it was not a political exile?
No, it was not. He was given a job, and he actually works. It's because last time I said the international organization, I was informed that I should not mention because of the confidentiality they've signed in the agreements and all that. So he then came
Debar, we forget that Matiang'I is also a professional. He was running a SUNY State University of New York parliamentary support program for many, many years.
I was coming there.
Yes,
I was coming there. The truth is, my history with Fred Matiang'I is long. Many people may not know this. I was campaigning for Uhuru Kenyatta against Mzee Nyachae when the elections were running. And at that time, I had not decided who I was going to support. Later, Matiang'I looked for me and he said, no, your father is supporting the president, but locally here, what I would ask you to do is, can you please support us? Mzee is running. Then we became friends. Later, when I became a member of parliament, I then found Fred, other than meeting him during those campaigns, I then found him at the parliament where he was attached from the City University of New York, handling parliamentary affairs. And he was there for about 10 years. And he was always coordinating the drafting of the bills and everything. Then, after my winning the elections, then Uhuru wins, and then he becomes the CS. Then, as we are moving, he now becomes on the other side. I'm in the opposition. I would then raise issues critically, and every time I found he was somebody who would listen. When I would actually, there were times we would disagree because of strategy or because of the issues as they came out at that time. And all the time, I found him to be engaging to me. I've met several individuals who also felt he was unassuming. He was somebody who felt he was too big for his job. That criticism, which I think is fair, because he himself has said that later, as he's now settled onto the job, he then realized that he had to change and begin to realize that the people were really the reasons why he was in office and all that. Whether you look at the successes or failures of Jubilee, my direct engagement with Fred is based on the three things which are constantly being mentioned. Particularly, he made me very, very comfortable with him when he tackled the issue of exam cheating. And the reality of it is that it was actually affecting Kisii more, because every year you would notice many schools from Kisii were being targeted, or they were actually participating in that. And it was very, very courageous for Fred to start dismantling the cartels which existed in Kisii and all the places in Kenya, the structure he set up. It's a long story which everybody knows. Then if you come to Interior, of course, many of the questions about his actions, what happened with Miguna, all these issues about the Yala deaths and all that, I believe he's strong enough and he understands and he knows that he must come and have an opportunity to be asked those questions, and he should answer them so that Kenyans can have confidence in him. Because like Haman has said, Matiang'I is a very interesting person. He is a very, very quick learner. And I noticed as he was staying longer in the Uhuru Kenyatta government towards his last days, by the time William Ruto had left, he was actually even behaving more presidential. Some people felt he was too arrogant. I believe that the political power play at that time was what really let him behave like that. Other than that, a deeply religious fella who is very simple. I find him highly, highly knowledgeable. You can discuss literature, you can discuss science, you can discuss the budget of Kenya. I mean, he's somebody you can engage with. So in my discussions with him and why I am supporting him as president, I have told him that he must sit down with us so that we can tell him how our country is broken. And he must pronounce himself what is going to be done, accepting international practice, make sure he will follow the law, make sure that it's going to be a 100 days. Obviously, he knows the issues of Kenya, the land question. He knows the issue of historical injustices. He knows the matters within the police service. In fact, we were really shocked when we came through the airport and the police officers who were there were just clapping at the guy. And we were like, what happened? So when we started asking them, I didn't know that police officers' allowances, which Matiang'I left them being paid, have all been slashed off. I mean, everything is being done as if I feel that I'm comfortable for this race. And the final thing I wanted to say, Dibal, is that we see Matiang'I as a good candidate. We don't see him as being above anybody else. We believe that the other candidates, Mzee Kalonzo, Rigathi Gachagua, if he's allowed to continue running, you're talking about Eugene. I mean, these are fine people. I'm beginning to really understand them differently. My view is that a time will have to come when each one of them will have to face the master. Each one of them will have been in a position where you can actually go to Kisumu, hold a rally, and draw crowds. Where as a team you go and you're able to run the ship. As I had Professor Nyikal speak, that is so true. Money is going to be a factor, yes. It's going to be a very, very big factor. But I believe that a lot of us are going to tell our people that this is your money, and please let us vote people who are going to help you, because your country is in trouble right now. And I believe that Matiang'I is somebody who's reasonable, he's not extreme, and I think is qualified to give it a challenge.
Thank you, Senator. Allow me to just rope in Honorable Jeremiah Kioni on this as well. Just quite pointedly, I will ask, is Dr. Fred Matiang'I Uhuru's project? Kindly unmute Honorable Jeremiah Kioni.
I don't think that is a useful question, Diba. Let me just say that I have listened to Professor Manyora. I associate myself with all that he has said. I've listened to Mheshimiwa Nyonka, and I associate myself with most of the statements that he has said. I have not had the opportunity to engage with Matiang'I since he came in the manner that they have. I met Matiang'I during the 8th Parliament when he was the director of SUNY. He was a much younger man, and Ruto said as on how much he contributed, well, through SUNY, but also through his thinking of what parliament should be and how it should be functioning. They worked very well with the speaker then, Marende. I used to interact with them very, very closely because I was involved in the constitution making process then. And I was really impressed with the many things that Matiang'I did then. I did interact with him when he was the minister during Uhuru's time. And again, there are many issues that impressed me from him. And one is that he is able to push what he says, and he thinks through before he brings those issues out. May I also say that I think in terms of he's less of a politician. I don't even think he's a politician, but he is a leader. And this country is, I think, is at a point where we are looking for leaders and less of politicians, because we have had politicians for a while. We had Kibaki, who decided to run the country. While he understood politics, he wasn't keen on any of us who wanted to do politics in his office. Anytime you'd walk in and sound like a politician, he will ask you, kwani kichwa yako ni fitina tu imejaa na hakuna kitu ingine. So I think this country is at that point. Without doubt, I agree with what others have said. Money will be used. We can already see a lot of that money being used in the country. I share the view of those who are saying a lot of money will be used, but it's not going to it's not going to give us the outcome. But people will use the money, and Kenyans are very crafty and clever. You saw it in the Mount Kenya when the visit was done. A lot of money was demanded. Members of parliament had excess of 5 million shillings each to ensure that the clouds came out. They were paid. But again, those of us who've been around Kidogo, we saw the Kipiripiri thing, or Kipipiri, where money again was used. A lot of development was taken to the constituency, but at the end of it all, the Kenyans from that part of the country decided to eventually let those who are in power know that they were fed up. And that's where we are in this country. And I don't think we have actually gotten to where we are. We've never had a president who has attracted so much hate like William has. And for that reason, the person who I think, and I'm not saying this because he has expressed his desire to run for the presidency using a Jubilee ticket, but he is a person who can be able to still remain a choice even when the money is available. Kenyans themselves are also speaking about it, and I am happy to listen more than say anything else. Even as we go through this space, I am keen to listen more, and because there's a lot of work to be done, without a doubt, a lot of work that needs to be done. But we must thank Kenyans because they have also started engaging, and they're using a lot of their space and time to discuss the candidature of Matiang'I. So, having been involved one way or another in that discussion there before, I would rather be a listener so that when we sit to make further discussion or decisions, we are more informed than we are today. And again, I thank those of us who are in this space, really people who are concerned about the state of affairs of this country and the direction we are taking, and they have wonderful ideas as to what we should be, as the direction we should take and what needs to be done. It is now also thinking through who are people who can do. And there's no one person who is perfect. But what is it that we can, who are those people who may be willing to give it a trial? Kenyans themselves have also seen them. I can tell you why Kenyans are looking at Matiang'I with that favorable eye is because of that track record. However difficult the situations were, he stood out and made an impression in Kenyans on all the areas that he tried. We will certainly have many people wanting to criticize, but as we do that, it is also good to say, yes, not this one, this other one. This is the position that we are in this country. But I'm personally confident that Matiang'I will be able to sail through, and this far, I think is the best that we have. I thank you.
The best that you have, meaning that is a foregone conclusion that Matiang'I is a flag bearer of the Jubilee Party. Could you kindly just confirm for us, Honorable Matiang'I? So is that a foregone conclusion?
You know also, Dibal, you know, that this is not anything new. We go all the way to the NDCs, and NDCs are normally held a short while before the general elections. They normally happen the last year of elections, but he's a presidential candidate of his man here, and I'm sure I don't want to say too much because I expect him to be saying more in the coming days. But again, we are in the motions, but he is there for us as Jubilee, and we are happy about it.
Right, the motions, it seems, is very fluid, so that is not really cast in stone, maybe. Or you're eagerly waiting for him to pronounce that himself. So we'll leave it at that. Let me just hear from Kabando. Kabando, you want to chime in on this? Good evening, sir.
Yes. Hi, good evening and happy Easter to everyone online. Thank you, Dibal, for this hosting. Sorry, I've been a little busy now. Just a quick comment on the topic. I think it is very important for the interrogations that are happening to be encouraged, and we have no other option than to tolerate the criticism that are happening to each and every one of us seeking offices, elective, whether national or county-based. It is so important that we have to appreciate that interrogation, calling to question our individual credentials, even to question our platforms as political parties or political formations, about the alternatives that we provide, whether we are the better options, because we have to compare one with another. Those who are in the opposition, we who are criticizing the cabinet government of Kenya Kwanza, have to be ready to receive an avalanche of questionnaires from particularly the generations that feel disinherited by the politics that have happened in this country in the past. True, we have made very many and significant gains in democratization, in accountability, and in the processes of transparency in how government is done, particularly the era post 2010, when we enacted the constitution that we now have. Yes, we do agree that our constitution is very progressive and has been celebrated so. Yet, when the burden of proof, when the burden to offer explanations and accountability are submitted by those who are civically aware, the conscious citizens who are driven by conscience to ask questions about their welfare, we start saying, like a minister said the other day, actually 2 cabinet secretaries, that this constitution is very expensive. The constitution of Kenya 2010 is not expensive. It is corruption that is expensive. It is impunity that is expensive. It is incompetence that is expensive. And therefore, the call for accountability charter, lest we forget, in 2024, leading up to the day that Parliament was impeached by the non-violent, fearless, tribeless Gen Z's revolution, when Parliament was raided non-violently, there were foundational questions that had been submitted in that countdown about the size of government, about leadership and integrity, which is clearly defined in Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership integrity. We have the Public Officers Ethics Act. And I remember the president himself in that public address when he dissolved the entire cabinet, minus 2, the then deputy and the chief cabinet secretary, agreed, including what we are now seeing today about the return of the church-based Harambes, the pastors being hosted in State House, not people to drive visions like 2030 that Kibaki had brought on board, and drawing from intelligentsia, from industrialists, from drivers of manufacturing, from political visionaries, going to countries like Britain, Singapore, and Japan, and bringing on board a plethora of players to drive that. If you remember that statement, when the president said, even himself, those the issues of Harambes, the number of state appointees will be reduced, including the number of advisors. Since then, we have gone full circle again. We are seeing the bribery, blatant bribery in churches happening, blatant bribery of politicians happening, blatant bribery of people attending political meetings that happened recently in the Mount Kenya tour by the president himself. We have seen people who are being terminated or sacked as state officers are being dumped as advisors to the president. We now cannot even remember the number of state officers occupying the title or the office of advisor to the president. Even people who are being donated, if they cannot fit in the cabinet, in the so-called experts, and I don't know the experts for what, donated to go and assist the president to rescue his cacophonous regime. You see they are being given titles of state advisors. Even a few days ago, a relative of one of those people who are driving the politics of conmanship and deception in Kenya, the politics of chicanery, a nephew was again appointed to go to an office in KICC as a presidential advisor. So I want to finish my submission on this point of people becoming fidgety and uncomfortable on the criticism when we are being called to questions about our past, what we did in the past, even if we achieved so much, those little things that we failed need to be explained either by a way of apologizing and owning up and saying, I occupied this office and I made this mistake. We have seen even a colonialist apologizing to Kenya for the atrocities on Mau Mau. So how about a Kenyan wanting to be a president, to be the chief executive of the Republic of Kenya, and our most progressive constitution that was enacted through pain, detention, maimings, assassinations, even post-election violence, not wanting to just say, I was in this particular public office as a CS, as a member of parliament, or as a chief justice, or any other office for that matter. And in this particular area, I would have done better. I remember President Moi Kibaki. On the day he was signing the memorandum of understanding with the Liberal Democratic Party, on behalf of the National Alliance Party Kenya then, with the Honorable Charity Gilu and the late Wamalwa Kijana at the high table. I remember he said that we may not have to, we don't have to go to history. What happened, happened. But in a way, if you interpret that speech, Moi Kibaki was saying, we have made mistakes in the past, but now there's so much to do in Kenya. And the doing needs people who are committed and dedicated. So we can come to that. And I do agree, of course, that we can be hostages of the past. So in this process of, I have seen to the title, and I had a question about it, because I don't think all these PhDs and professors you are assembling and the luminaries of political parties can come to discuss whether Matiang'I came back or not. But I know it was meant to attract the audience and get us to be captivated to come here. I think everyone who is now presenting himself or herself as a possible flag bearer for the opposition to face President Ruto should actually be radically different from what Ruto is offering in order to excite, to thrill, and to inspire the majority of voters who have not had the burdens of negativities and liabilities of the politics that you have carried in the past. And I say we, including myself, and those others, Kionis and those Onyonkas that we have been in that realm of political leadership, including in the National Assembly, so that we interrogate so thoroughly. We know what is your position on land grabbing. Have you ever been accused of any land issue? Then, can you explain that particular matter to the full? Have you been accused of extrajudicial killings or complicity of the same? Can you excuse yourself or exonerate yourself? Have you been accused of state capture? Then explain, because these are the very grievances that made our children, the Gen Zs, to galvanize the whole country. And for once, there was a Rika, a generation, like the generation that belonged to Dedan Kimathi in the 50s, that was celebrated by the young and the old. If you went to an old lady or gentleman of 90 years or the generations, they were always asking, why are you killing our children? So these children don't do any other regime than like you will be like this one we have. They want a fresh start. They want a radical shift. They want a bold breakaway from how things have been in order to usher a new down. So interrogation, questioning, vetting, verifications, calling to account should be the painful process that we must go through now in order to get to the new chapter, the new era, the new dawn. Finally, how come we have a question of illegal, not illegal because there's not even illegal trading in organs, human organs trafficking, and a person who is implicated either by ownership of the hospitals that are implicated, that is a direct linkage. Instead of being revoked as a chairman of a state corporation is being suspended. If we are serious about Kenya, there isn't anything more that we should be protecting with honesty, with all our hearts, wholeheartedly, than to protect the life of Kenya before we talk about property. So we are joking. So criminals are walking scot-free. They buy a seat in the state corporations. They buy a seat in the cabinet. I had Cleo Malala in another media platform. I think I should mention JKL, saying that there are two cabinet secretaries who are drug barons. That means, narcotics. And we have not seen Nakanda asking, can you mention? Can you state? Or even the DCI going forward to say these are very serious claims. We don't subject the claimant or the man making the allegations to carry the burden of proof. But can we now seek to know whether this country is safe in this regard? Because we know countries that have been dominated by militias and the drug barons and the merchants of impunity who carry even political assassinations are nations that fail. They are called banana republics. I submit, truly so, that for us to have a new Kenya, we need to have the courage. Like Kennedy would say, a profile of courage. The long walk to freedom in order to enact the spirit, not just the content, the letter and the spirit of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. We should have a bandwagon of a new formula and a new chapter that is completely opposite of the cacophonous, toxic, and the murderous regime that's presided over by William Ruto. Thank you.
Can I say something? Hello?
Yeah, just a moment, so that at least you can meet yourself, Kapando, and Honorable Dr. James Chigal, kindly just meet yourself. So you will give you a chance, so that also we have everybody speaking on. Benji, you wanted to say something briefly?
Mine is quite brief, Dibal, and I had said at the beginning of the show that I happen to know Dr. Fred Matiang'I personally. And of course, Dibal, all these years later, as an strategist, as an analyst, it would be remiss of me to not share my observations, my findings, with this panel. We really began this work with you more than 12 years ago in 2011, 2012 at NTV. Dibal, Fred Matiang'I is, as with any national leader, there'll be a lot of scrutiny and a lot of things that will come up. There are a lot of suspicions about his role as a university student in the Moi regime. But because that's a bit far back, and there are those who will query that, and even why he goes by the name Fred and not Frederick. Because, sometimes, Dibal, when you scratch the surface and go to details, you'll always find something. I just feel that from just my own observation, that he is also the embodiment of this kind of culture that we talked about earlier. Fred Matiang'I is a worker, for sure. He's a worker. He's pompous. He's aggressive. He will go towards a goal, but also at what cost? At what human cost? In my own experience, you will talk about something, and I've had professional meetings with him. And then the issue now that comes out is the issue of character, that a leader says, this is what I will do, this is how we will do it, and then actually do it. So there are questions here. It's not for nothing. There was a lot of disregard of court orders, just the handling of dissidents, the handling of Miguna is just one example. But as a strategist now, Dibal, if you'll allow me, Matiang'I actually had a chance at that time, 2021, 2020, post-COVID, etc. He actually had a chance to mold and model himself as a candidate and take the stab at that time. Now, there are some major blunders he made politically. For example, what Matiang'I did because he's a worker is the president used him to do his own work. So those of you who know Uhuru Kenyatta deeply, people like Kabando here, people like Professor Macharia Munene here, people like Professor Haman Manyora here, okay, and I'm just being very neutral and professional. You know, Uhuru would like to take Monday off. Uhuru would like to just kind of run the country in a lackadaisical fashion. Like, Mimi Msinisumbue, you know, if you want to talk to me, pigia Fred, you know. Ambassadors, don't bother me, etc. So Fred Matiang'I, in essence, then was running the country almost as, quote, the president. One of the major blunders they did, therefore, was the Azimio coalition looked at elections as just a mere formality. So that when they paraded Raila, the former prime minister, as a candidate, Fred Matiang'I then swaggered like, okay, we have agreed with my boss, President Uhuru, that this is the candidate, and the deputy president, Ruto, has no chance. So this is how it's going to be, whether you like it or not. And I believe his PS, Karanja Kibicho, made public statements repeatedly to that effect, specifically on Citizen TV. In fact, he went a step further and said, our polls show that Raila is ahead, and those who don't like it can buy ropes and hang themselves. So, as we talk about the toxic culture of bullying, of disregard for the constitution, of disrespect for human beings, of manipulating and using and oppressing people, because that is where the Rivayala cases, etc., come from, Dibal, as an honest space, will not be able to run away from those uncomfortable discussions. And I really thank everybody who has made a contribution this evening towards morality and just having values and having a country that is clean and objective and humane. I really thank all of you guys that have spoken that way, Kabando and the rest, because there is no point of us continuing to cry about bad leadership and then always putting in a leadership that in the end we end up crying. So I'll kind of pause there. I know many things, but there are heavy questions about the callous, arrogant, heavy-handed, really is the word, leadership style of Fred Matiang'I. I thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Well,
Just a moment, Professor and Honorable Richard Onyonka, because I think also Kabando has raised serious issues here, speaking quite furtively and in a very nuanced way, that yes, there's a cloud bank of doubts and integrity questions also around the candidature of Fred Matiang'I that he will not really run away from. He has to answer the questions of Yala, of course, and that extra, judicial killings that really happened so far. This is still hanging very freshly on the rafters of our minds. Wealth accumulations and the transparency. He was under investigation. I don't know how that really fared on, or it tapered just off with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission regarding the accumulation of his wealth during his tenure as a cabinet secretary. The IDP funds, there are a lot of them, and quite more poignantly, we know of the Ruaraka land scandal, right? Involving controversial 1.5 billion shillings payout for land allegedly already owned by government. We had ethical conduct during electoral campaigns, and I can see, I think, Honorable Kioni, you've dropped again to the listeners or the plenary questions around that. And the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights accusing Dr. Matiang'I in 2018 of breaching electoral rules by allegedly bribing voters during Jubilee campaigns, including the donation of a school bus, funds to a high school. How much, or how do, of course, such actions align with ethical standard expected of public servants, and what impact, of course, might they have on his presidential campaign? These are questions that we need to interrogate, because now when you come to this spaces, I mean, you're coming to the public arena, you're vulnerable. You are bound to be, questioned on these things. So we'll want to hear how you handle that briefly. Allow me just to get Professor, where is he? Has he dropped? Oh, yeah, Professor Gitila Naituli. Before I come to you, Professor Richard Onyonka, Senator Richard Onyonka, briefly, and then we can hear also from Honorable Nyikal. And then we go to the plenary because of time as well. Thank you. Kitile Naituri?
Yes. Now, without benefit of extensive research, I'll tell you what is attracting people to Matiang'I, what is making him become the topic. I mean, I was in Aguru. I've just arrived in Nairobi. I interacted a lot with the people over there. I was in Meru before that, interacted with a lot of people. People think that the system they have is rotten beyond repair. People believe that Kibaki, with all his success, he failed in one respect, that the government we had after independence, that is Kenyatta one government, should have settled the question of impunity. Should have gone after the Gaborios, after all those Kenyans who oppressed others, who betrayed the country with the Mzungu. The people feel that when Moi came, he continued the impunity, continued a criminal enterprise. Instead of running a state, he ran a criminal enterprise, and therefore should have been held accountable. People think the person who should do that should have been Mwai Kibaki. And Mwai Kibaki done that, then we will not be having what we are having now. We will not be having what in Jubilee did to the country before it handed over to Kenya Kwanza. Now, for some reason that I said I don't have data to explain it, people think that Matiang'I will put to an end the impunity which has been in the country. People think that William Ruto, even if you are to win the election, you refuse to leave. And therefore, the Kenyans are looking for somebody who has the capacity to run him out of town in the event that he decides to violate the law and take us to 2007. So if you are going to look for what is attracting the Kenyans to Matiang'I, you have now to look at the psychology of the Kenyans right now, and then the psychology of the leadership that is existing, and you realize that the Kenyans are looking for a warrior. They are not actually looking for a leader. So, and that, I mean, you can categorize it anyway. I think you can say that unfortunate because of all the issues you are raising. But then again, when you look at history, the people who threatened countries who address with the finality countries' weaknesses are the people who have the capacity to do so. Not negotiators, not the diplomats, but somebody who will come and say, wait a minute, we have lost it. We must come must come on the line. And therefore, people reach out to what he did with the stealing of exams, what he did with the school buses, what he did with the movement from the television thing. I don't have the language to describe the movement from so there is all this. They are looking at that. That's what I have listened to you here, what people consider as his weaknesses when he was the cabinet minister. Those weaknesses is what the people are thinking actually they are his strength right now. Because we are dealing with a completely different environment with very unreasonable people who probably need another unreasonable person to undo the mess that is currently taking place. So I think unless Matiang'I messes himself up once he go to the race, it appears to me that this will be his race to lose. Now, like I've explained quietly, and I said without serious data, that is people are simply looking for strength. People are scared of what the current president is likely to do in the event that he loses the election. And therefore they need a strong fortress. They need a soldier. They need a warrior. And therefore all the Matiang'I weaknesses are being converted into strength. So yes, I think that's it. I'm done.
Thank you.
Dibao, can I come in?
Yes, yes. And then we have Dr. Nikal. You hanging on the line still? Thank you. Richard Onyoko, you can go on briefly.
Thank you. I have actually listened to what you've said and what Benji has said. I do believe that Fred will be given an opportunity to explain himself, whatever circumstances that led him, because when you are in certain government places and things like that, I believe he should come out and explain himself. Professor Naituli has actually...
Yes, and before you go to Naituli, Senator, we'll be very glad also to just host him on this particular space and open the mic to everyone now to actually, speak to him, and maybe if they can fire their questions and they have contributions to make as well. So if you could just pass on to Fred Matiang'I, as it goes to some of the big stations, of course, on TV. Also, this will be the place.
Thank you. I'll pass the message. So what I wanted to say is that, if voters are very interesting people. I have been voted for so many years, and sometimes it baffles me because I have never, for example, in any time I've done my politics, I had never at any one time planned any violence or planned to go and harass my opponent for years and years and years. I used to assume that my voters never saw that until when I was now running for senator. And that's when some of them will say, you know what, yes, these days the young boys like fighting each other. But for you never used to, So there's an attitude that exists right now there's a feeling, excuse me, let me use that word. The young people of this country see Matiang'I a little bit differently than we may want to see him as an adult. I have talked to 2, 3, 4 of them who talk about the Matiang'I exams, the Matiang'I food, how Matiang'I will go to schools in the morning and stuff like that. And I think Benji has raised it that some people felt he was doing it overzealously and everything. I believe that at some point, even me when I was a member of parliament and I'd given a chairman money to start building a classroom and he ate all of it. Once I appeared there with a panga and it wasn't looking good. I didn't mean to harm anybody. I was doing it for the dramatic so that it looks like he cannot do it again. The issues are weighty. I believe Fred is seized to answer them one by one. I believe that may not be what will deter him from continuing with his presidency. Just like any other country, people are going to watch, they're going to listen to him. If he will be convincing, I believe that they will treat him fairly. If he's not convincing, because my immediate and serious thinking about our country is that anybody who's going to run for president must understand how it's broken, why it's broken, and when it was broken, if need be, so that some of these things can be fixed, so that we can start fixing all the mess that we are having around us. And therefore, my feeling is that, yes, the existence of Matiang'I around Uhuru, the period he stays with him, even when it might have had some negatives, my belief and conviction is that during that time, he also learned quite a bit. He actually participated in a lot of events, international or otherwise. When I listened to him, sometimes making speeches and everything, I could see that he was making a change. In other words, he was now beginning to understand what governance was at the top level. And my honest feeling is that he is actually very well qualified, despite the critical issues which have been raised. And I believe when the time comes, and that should be soon enough, he'll come out and answer them. And it's for Kenyans to judge whether the answers he'll give would have satisfied them. The other last point I wanted to make is that I can say this. We've been conducting Sinovet, what do I call it? We have been doing polling to check why Fred is quite popular. And every poll we've done nationally, he's at 42%. When he's the number 2 person, he's at 27%, and the rest go down that way. And all the issues that are being brought is what I had Professor Naikuli say, that people want a leader who's going to be firm, who's going to be strong, who's going to try and fight the cartels and make sure he changes the mess that we are in, and somebody who I feel, and this is the credit is always being given, who showed that through the Ministry of Education, or even through the Ministry of Interior, or even through the Ministry of ICT, when he was moving from analog to digital, and everybody was up in arms and all that. Those were cartels fighting and all that. He was able to either influence, use soft diplomacy, or twist the president for the president to agree for him to keep on moving. Number two, I do believe that there's no other candidate today. Oh yes, there's Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, there's Eugene Wamalwa, there's everybody else. I believe that Fred Matiang'I knows William Ruto more than any other politician. Why? They work together through the government. He was there when Uhuru started with William. He was there during the Hague hearings. I mean, the whole of that journey, I believe, puts him in a position to know what to do if he really wants to be a challenger to President William Ruto. Thank you very much, Dibal.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Onyonka there. So let me just also get reactions from, I saw you raising your hand, Peter Kagwanja. You wanted to object or chime in, or what is your perspective? Kindly, and then we shall hear from Dr. James Kikal. I think he's dropped. Okay. Kikal, let's hear from you before Professor Peter Kagwanja. Yes, continue.
Who is speaking me? Oh, okay, it's not me. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll come to you. Is Dr. Nika?
I said mine is actually very brief. Mine is very brief. Dr. Matiang'I comes in, and why there is so much attention coming. People are desperate in this country. People are desperate, and people are actually afraid of the future. And you know, particularly the areas of education, the areas of security, the areas of health. Now, people are just afraid. People don't know what is going to happen. So then, Matiang'I comes with a history of a man of action. And in which areas was he known as a man of action? Again, it was in the area of education, the area of security, and the area of digitization. So, particularly in education, where he actually made a great change in the examination, the cheating in examination. It was so profound that schools that used to be top came down, and now it was clear they were cheating. Even entry into the university went down because people were cheating. So it was remarkable, and so people saw him as a man of action. And that is why when he comes in now, when people are feeling desperate, people say, this may be the guy we are looking for. We saw him. He did this, and we saw some changes. But then there is a danger that I think I see for him. He comes in, people are desperate, and what people are really looking for in this country now is a selfless person, more or less in the level of Nyerere, Mandela, and so on, because that is what you need. Now the danger is Dr. Matiang'I going to actually fit that bill? Is he going to avoid tribal grouping? Ethnicity is a big way of mobilization in this country. And it's very easy for somebody to be roped in this tribal politics and tribal mobilization. Is he really going to run away from that safely? Is he going to run away from money politics? Because again, the country seems to be having, it's a human being, a split personality. They know that big money has actually affected us negatively, but we still have a big admiration for people who come in with big money. And it's how it is going to be used. I wonder whether these two things, being driven in a tribal cocoon, being driven into look at how to use big money in politics. And then last, propaganda, where, as somebody said, what we know as his strengths are then scrutinized and then subjected to propaganda, will he survive these dangers? I think I'll summarize it like that. I see why people go for him. I see the dangers ahead of him. and the challenges that he'll face. And I think for me, at this point, I leave it at that.
Dibar, may I chip in but just briefly, please?
Can I
Hello?
allow me just to give you the mic to Professor Peter Kagwanja, then we'll come to you, Professor Karuti. Kindly, briefly, yes, Kagwanja.
Yes, I really want to be brief because by the way we are talking and about Matiang'I and all this, we appear to be on a promotional a campaign, which is very wrong. Because here on this platform, we stood to talk about our society and the decay, in it, and the problems we are facing. Obviously, we cannot avoid talking about William Ruto because he's a man who holds the total accountability of our country. But the way we are talking about Matiang'I here is very, very promotional. And I think we need to desist from there and get to the gist of the matter. The essence of it is that I watched James Orekiapi, professor, a man of integrity, gifted, who had done great jobs, and obviously it went that way. Politics is a very different game from the kind of marketing that we're doing here. What we need to do is to look at what Matiang'I can do. Matiang'I was a fixer for Uhuru Kenyatta, and not everybody agreed with what Uhuru Kenyatta did. I remember Benji asking me, whether the current quagmire we find ourselves in has its origin or genesis in Uhuru Kenyatta's system. And I answered to the affirmative that is true. And Matiang'I, to a great extent, stood out as an exception to the general rule in that government, but at the same time, as a personal achiever, I, at a personal level, know Matiang'I long before he even got into politics, from civil society and all, and we work together as academics and all that. But the essence of it is that this is a different ball game. Now, the way we are doing here, we are not helping Matiang'I because Kalonzo Musyoka is watching or listening, or his people are listening. Mother Karua, my friend, Omunyoro is also listening where he is, and others are listening. So it's more of the Matiba factor when he came in 1992. Where is Odinga? Where is Murilo? Where are the others? So Matiang'I has come from abroad and is beginning to have this big axe that is splitting the opposition, or the opposition through. I think we need to talk about the issues that Matiang'I can address collectively with others. I think that's the debate, if we're talking about opposition. And to isolate the issues that differentiate him from Ruto, not the fact that he's this Akurian man who will bring Ruto down if Ruto does not want to get out of power. That's not really good marketing. The issue is, what does Matiang'I stand for? I know him as a man who has a resolve. Whatever other weakness we may bring about, is if he's at the helm of it, he will be able to stand his gun and stand on moral foundation. But how does he get there? He cannot get there by being paraded as better than others. I think we are using the wrong game here. Let's stop being promotional about Matiang'I. Let him stand up and say what he's going to do. Let him wade his way through either the opposition or whatever other formation is going to emerge. You never know by October next year what kind of other formation is going to emerge. But discussing Matiang'I as a fixer, I think that's the wrong approach to things. Thanks. Sorry.
Thank you, Professor Peter Kagwanja. That is noted. Let me give the floor to Karuti, Professor Karuti. Then we hear Professor Macharia. We want to open the floor to also a plenary so that we can get reactions as well, because time is really far much spent sticking away from us.
Yeah,
keep it for long. Yes, briefly.
Yeah, I would like to say that we are still dealing with the symptoms of a problem in this country. And at the moment we acknowledge that we are dealing with symptoms, and these symptoms cannot be corrected by individuals, the better for us. I've always said that political elites in the country are the same. Matiang'I and Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga are the same. Let's call a spade a spade. And all that is required then is for us to ask what are the fundamental problems that we want these elites to correct if they were to run for office and win the elections. That's the most fundamental thing that we need to address. Matiang'I, Ruto, Uhuru, Kalonzo are all cut from the same cloth, I must admit. And because of that, we have got to start asking ourselves, where do we stand in terms of holding them to account, and what are the issues we want to be addressed in this country, and how do we shape their narratives when they stand for office to correct these particular problems that we have a concern with. And I don't see ourselves coming to that. As Kawanja said, I think we are running a very wrong course to start talking about an individual correcting what we have. We need to start asking ourselves, what kind of framework do we need to put in place to correct the challenges that we have? Youth unemployment is on the lowest level ever. And this is simply because of how we have handled the manufacturing industry in this country in the last 10, 15 years. What do we do to correct the manufacturing sector? What do we do to correct what happens with tax collection in this country? What do we do to correct industrialization? I mean, to make Kenya an industrialized country? What do we do to create more jobs for our youth so that they don't go for jobs outside the country? These are the real things that we need to start discussing. Now, I'm afraid that the opposition we have in the country today, whether we have it by name or or literally, has not come down to say what they can never do to address some of the challenges we have. I have not heard anyone from the opposition saying that the government is doing the following things wrong and we are going to do the following things right. I've not heard the opposition saying that this was what we have to do to correct, to improve on exports to exports of Kenyan goods. My problem is that actually we are not talking issues, we are talking individuals. And the more we move to understanding that we have a problem as of Kenya's political culture, of sometimes preferring to talk about individuals rather than what we need as a country, and B, not having a long-term vision for our country, then better we shall run a better course for this country. But I think we need to go back to the drawing board, recognize that we have a political culture that is wrong, a political culture that promotes individuals rather than issues, a political culture that tolerates ethnicity, whereas in public we don't. We have got fundamental problems that we need to address as a country, even as we prepare for these elections. Unfortunately, we are likely to face 2027 and have the same result of leaders who don't care for the country but care for short-term gains. That's where we are as a country. We need to start asking, what kind of leaders can we produce who can have a long-term vision and work towards that end of making Kenya a better society? I think we are the ones who are tolerating these individuals and shaping what they do and doing it wrong all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Karuti. Professor Macharia, you wanted to just weigh in briefly, then we open the floor to the plenary for questions and contributions.
Thank you. There's issue of Matiang'i's return, because it's been portrayed that he has returned, and some people portray him as if he's a savior. So he's come to save the country. All he has done is increase the excitement in the political arena, and how long the excitement will last is another matter. He's charismatic, that is not in doubt, but charisma takes you only so far, and such things. So it is an excitement, and almost the same level, maybe slightly lower, as the one that Wamunyoro created after he was kicked out of the deputy president's place. There's a lot of excitement around him, and see how long will it last or whatever it is. So all that Matiang'i's return from Washington has done is to create some excitement and to have some people present him as if he's a savior to Kenya, which he is not. But he's an exciting candidate. He makes it fun to watch politics from afar, but not to make any conclusion one way or the other. 2 years is a long time that we have before it's even clear who is it that is likely to emerge as the main challenger to William Ruto, because Ruto will be a candidate. And it's increasingly looking as if Raila will also be a candidate. So another candidate who is not either Ruto or Raila, and there may be a number of them. But what Matiang'I has done is simply to make the political feud exciting to watch and nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Macharia. I wanted just to ask Haman, looking at the political outfit that Matiang'I is coming through with, and Jeremiah Kioni was here. I think he's dropped to the listeners all of the plenary. He will have answered that quite snugly or fittingly. I wanted just to ask you, do you think Jubilee is a better outfit for Matiang'I, given his region as well? And yes, now that we know Uhuru Kenyatta also is bankrolling death as well, what sort of shadow looms behind Matiang'I with Uhuru Kenyatta also being the person who is, should I say, pulling the strings, so to speak, when it comes to funding Matiang'I? Haman Manyora?
Okay, thank you. At the bar, there has been talk of a project, as we all have heard, Uhuru's project, and Jeremiah Kioni put it. The less said about that, the better. You see, when you have branded a project, it comes with its own problems. But again, who wouldn't want Uhuru's support? Truth be said, who among all these candidates wouldn't want Uhuru's support? Who wouldn't want the populous Mount Kenya region to support them if they are running for president? As to whether he is a project or not, that is a small matter, because there's always talk of a project. If, for example, Kalonzo were to be supported by Gachagua, would that make him a project, Gashagua's project? I mean, there's always somebody in the politics supporting the other. Politics is about soliciting for support. Politics is about interests. And therefore, the crude labeling of project, I don't think that should derail anybody. If I were running for president and somebody called me Uhuru's project, it wouldn't even bother me, because Uhuru's support will come with so much. There's something people have said about, because now I must sign off immediately after this. There are things that are coming out. Some people are tending to suggest that Matiang'I comes with his baggage. That happens in politics all the time, all the time. In fact, in 2007, as we are talking about changing this country through Raila Odinga, inevitably, there were people in the Pentagon and around the Pentagon who had questionable characters. But as a country, we said, in the manner in which Achebe talked about the early politicians in 1989, that when the bigger desire is to bring change, sometimes it may not be so important in terms of the people you are working with. What you look at is the change. That every politician in this country has a past. That past, like Kabando says, must be questioned, must be interrogated, except that it must not be allowed to stand in the way of the greater desire of the country to change and move forward. So yes, and somebody else has said, I think it's Kabando again, sometimes it might be desirable for you to say, fine. Even in the Bible, they say, when I was a child, I did things that children do. When I was in some position, perhaps it looked that was the thing to do. Now, with hindsight and with more experience in life, I think that wasn't the right thing to do. And I apologize to people, or you explain. But to think that among the politicians we have in this country, we will fail to pick one merely because of what they have done or not done in them. I think we will not get a politician that is absolutely clean in this country. It is for that reason that I've always argued, if Kenyans want a really break with the past, then they must think differently, think outside the catchment areas from which we get the leaders we call leaders. So therefore, I'm just concluding by saying, Matiang'I being Uhuru's project, that's nothing. In fact, to me, is a serious plus because everybody is somebody's project. In fact, ultimately, the best candidate will be the people's project. So being a project is nothing. And finally, again, like I've said, everybody comes with some challenges. And somebody has said for Matiang'I, some of these so-called challenges are actually what is attracting people to him. Because truth be said, Kenyans want somebody who can deliver. Matiang'I has shown in the past he has the capacity to deliver. The part of him looking arrogant is also the same part that makes him a no-nonsense person. The sort of person Kenyans will be looking for now, like Professor Naituli has said. So I don't see any of these challenges standing in the way of Matiang'I. Only to say that the people of Kenya may require some answers in some aspects. And that is for Matiang'I and his team. Onyonka, I hope you are listening and delivering this. For them to ensure they are able to communicate with the people of Kenya, have a conversation with the people of Kenya around the issues that may make some people uncomfortable. And I don't think that's too much. Thank you, Diba, and I think I sign off now.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't go away. We want just to open the plenary and then we wind up briefly. I think we've covered enough of that. We've talked a good game about Matiang'I, as Professor Kagwanja and Karuti alluded to. Yes, it shouldn't be also a platform where he gets a promotion. We should be discussing issues as it were. And I want just to open the floor to a panelist right now. Not really a panelist, but the plenary. I can see most of you, so many requests. Because of interest of time, we'll just take a few. I would urge you also to be very brief. Just fire your questions or share your contributions. A minute or even 50 seconds will do, so that we can get reactions also maybe from our panelists if it's directed to any of them. So brevity is of essence. I want to hand the mic briefly to Josephine Nganga. You have the floor right now. Kindly be brief.
Thank you very much, host, and I want to say good evening to fellow Kenyans from wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, as per your timelines. And a happy Easter to everyone. I wish you well. I had taken a break from the Express, but I'm back now after the Easter. Yes, and this is what I would suggest to say. It's a nice topic that you've just brought about, Professor Matiang'I, and what I can say personally is that at a particular point, there was a time I thought Matiang'I would do good to this country. However, he lost his track on the way and he started showing arrogance and actually joining wars which he didn't belong to. And that's actually where he lost his credit. As per me right now, I am not able to elect Matiang'I because it was very simple. And I've questioned him severally and he has tried to ignore that. It's very important if you are looking for a position, you have to be able to answer the questions when people ask. And I've asked him, we've seen you join a battle between two bosses and you were not the right person to do that. You didn't stand your ground. How would you stand your ground for this country when it's drowning? You will still take sides. And he cannot tell me that he would not take side in such an event. However, nevertheless, yes, no matter how desperate we are as a nation, we have to compose ourselves and stand firm and see to it that all the time anything that happens, it doesn't happen for the first time. It has happened before, and we can copy what has been happening. Let's draw our minds back to 2002. What happened? Because so many people are just standing there and trying to think that Ruto is the only savior, and now he has to get the back because there is nobody else who can remove him from this country. It's true. A sitting president will be removed. It's not easy, but we can do it by coming together, all of us who do not believe in what he's doing, and joining together and forgetting about the opposition. Because again, we don't know, even neither the Matiang'I could be also a project of Ruto himself, so that he makes sure that the opposition doesn't stand. These are things that we need to put into consideration. Anybody at this particular point can be used as a project. So we need to stand firm and see what can we do to minimize the aspirants of the presidential contest, so that we are able to beat Ruto hands down with no question and no query. That's my opinion and that's my personal view. However, I call upon all fellow Kenyans, we have to stand up for our country, because anybody who is seeking for leadership as a president and is not thinking in the parameters of reviving the factories in the country which are closed down, then that's not a leader who is intending actually to arrest the issues of unemployment in the country. For us to arrest the issues of unemployment in our country, we have to focus on reopening all the factories and stopping any import of anything that can be manufactured in our country. That's the only president we need right now to change our country and to build up our economy. I really appreciate the host for giving me the opportunity, and thank you, fellow Kenyans, for listening to me. I'll be participating again and again wherever I need to do that. Thank you so much, and God bless us. Happy Easter to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
Josephine. Wonderful for the comment. Yes, appreciated. Let me hand over also the mic to Abdi Nu, you say that you're the founder chair of UDA, that is United Democratic Alliance. Is that true? You can tell us, or you can chime in.
Oh, thank you, Dibal. Thank you, Dibal. I am Abdi. I'm the founder chairman, United Democratic Alliance, and currently an independent consultant. I want to join the chorus saying that Mr. Matiang'I, personally, I think he is a performer. This country today needs salvation. I think he can contribute immensely to, if elected in 2027, I know he can perform. But the biggest caveat and the biggest obstacle to Matiang'i's candidature is, why are we people running away from my UDA or my Kenya Kwanza? It's because of extrajudicial killing, arrogance, abductions, and all these things. Unfortunately, or paradoxically, under his hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. You went off the grid a bit. Yes, thank you.
Dibal, are you hearing me?
Yes, continue.
Under his leadership, there was Rivanyala, abductions, and above all, he showed a lot of arrogance. And people are running from my party today, or my coalition today, because of the arrogance and opulence. And Matiang'I had displayed a lot of arrogance during his time. Additionally, there was a lot of abductions with no sorrow or remorse, and I think his candidature will be affected so much by his past. And I want to say, finally, that also people are seeing him as a project of the current administration, just because maybe people suspect that he has a lot of scars and he knows a lot. Therefore, people see him as a project of the Kenya Kwanza administration who want to divide the votes in 2027. Thank you very much, Dibal. And I want to say, Mr. Matiang'I, welcome back to your country. Thank you.
Thank you, Abinu. We really appreciate. So you UDA party, it's hands off from you. It is under new management. You're just the founder, or what do you have?
Yes, yes, I'm the founder, chairman, emeritus.
Right, thank you. Okay, let me just hand over the mic to Alenga. Alenga Toros Dax. Kindly just mute and you can fire away a question or share your contribution briefly. Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you, Debal, for this opportunity to be able to contribute on this worthy discourse. I represent a voice from my generation, which is fairly younger than the rest of the speakers that have gone before me, and I truly appreciate being able to share the platform with them and being able to listen to them keenly and learn from their wealth of experience. However, I have three things to bring forth, and one of them is none of the speakers that went before me has been able to speak about the state and the issue of youth and unemployment in this country, which is a huge, huge scourge that no government ever talks about. But before that, then we have to look at two things that we argue about them interchangeably, and sometimes one looks more of the other than the other, and that is government and the state. So the moment we distinguish between government and the state, then we are able to get the trajectory where we are supposed to go. Ours is to walk towards a state that we want. The government is about the individuals that will fill the positions of leadership on a day-to-day basis. That can change, but if the backbone of it, which is the state, does not change, so that we have a state that contemplates what the people think and what the people want, then we lose the direction and the conversation altogether. So back to my point of the issue of youth and unemployment, many people do not speak about this, even the leadership. And when they do speak about it, they speak about it just as any other word is, and as the content of their rhetoric, rather than a conviction of their hearts and a commitment of their future actions. Why? Because the generation that has been perpetually in power emanates from the 70s, the 60s, the 80s, and those times, if you remember, everyone here, getting a job was not really a problem, but persevering through the educational system was the problem. But today we have young people that are acquiring degrees upon degrees. They are going through a lot, but when they get discharged out of these institutions, there is nowhere to go. And why is there nowhere to go? Because the structures that would have absorbed these young people were brought down by their very parents, who saved everything to educate them, but they kept spoiling everything that was a structure that would support them. When you look at the news, who are the chairmen that are failing boards in this country? They're not young people. Who are the CEOs that are bringing down companies? They're not young people. Who are the leaders of parastatals that are killing those parastatals on a day-to-day basis? They're not young people. They are the fathers of the very children that want employment today. Secondly, we have an issue of the young people losing faith in the way of the ballot as a means of transition of government. Because we have looked at how everything has gone on in this country, and we do not have the slightest scintilla of hope that change can ever come from that ballot. So we want a leader that can inspire us that that ballot can become meaningful in 2027, so that when we register and come out in our numbers, that result will reflect what happened on the voting day. Thirdly, we have a youth that is constantly being weaponized against their own country, to hate the system, to hate the leadership, to hate everyone that is in the place, because we are drowning, and the same people that were supposed to save us from the water are just looking at us and toasting wine to their deals and their other things, because our issue has never been brought to the table. So we have a youth that is constantly in hate of their own country. And where I come from, they say, A young child who does not feel loved by the village will one day light it up so that he can just sit back and feel the warmth of the village. So this is an issue that the next leadership must configure a way in which they are going to absorb the youthful sentiment in this country and then give us hope that we can actually turn out in numbers and change the system so that this system works for us. And for us, when we say Ruto must go, we do not mean that him as a person must go. We mean the mentality must go. We mean the structure must go. We mean the way of thinking must go. And there we have to have a new Kenya, a state that pleases us, a state that reflects that which we want. So therefore,
thank you.
I'm just landing, Dibal. So therefore, when we say must go, we are saying that the beginning of that or the actualization of that will import into the Kenyan politics a realization that, you know, you can be removed from power if you do not do what people want. It is not, we have to take away that notion that I will lead the way I want, but they will allow me to finish my 10 years and just go. There now has to be a punitive measure on that so that even the next leader that comes, we do not care how bad he's intending to rule the country, but at the hindsight, he will know that these people can remove me. So we want to paint that reality that there comes a time when we can punish bad behavior of our leaders, and that can only be punishable through the ballot. So that leader that is coming in 2027, whether it is Matiang'I or whoever it is, must first of all inspire us, because the conversation of 2027 is between tribal mobilization and recognition of the young population. So if that leader comes and speaks to us and harnesses the numbers that we have, then we are going to create the change that is so desired. So I think I would definitely have a lot of things to say, but let me land on that in the interest of time.
Thank you, Alenga. I really do appreciate your sentiments there. Let's hear from Western. Briefly, Western Shilaho.
Dibal, hi. Greetings to everybody. Dibal, I think we are a schizophrenic society. Schizophrenic. Because it beats logic. It beats logic that someone could have issues with William Ruto for extrajudicial executions, for corruption, runaway corruption, for brazen disregard of the Constitution. And in the same breath, we'll tell you that Matiang'I is the option, is the alternative. That's schizophrenic. There's no logic there whatsoever. So the question is, why are you opposed to William Ruto then? Can you just run people through that tortured logic? Why you're opposed to William Ruto? Why do you lament that people are being killed on the streets? They're disappeared. People are becoming millionaires without producing anything. Corruption all over the place. At the same time, you want to convince people that Matiang'I is the alternative. Okay, so we are not bothered with this post-colonial edifice that is decadent, rotten, anti-people. We just care about personalities. So if you come into power, you kill people, but you are my person. I have no problem with that. If you are in power, you're killing people, you're not my person. Suddenly I've got a problem with what you're doing. Like, how can you be such a society? Honestly, how can you be such a society? Then we deserve these people, don't we? Because we're not better than them. They are cynical, we're also cynical. We don't care about our well-being, we don't care about our lives. So somebody, Matiang'I, on record, disregarding court orders, not one, not two, not three, many court orders. He disregarded them. A person, if you care, he was at the airport Some lady asked him to queue. He refused. This lady, I think, was sacked or something. So hubristic like that, has no regard
Yes.
for order. Why would you want somebody like that to be your president? He's going to shoot you in the head. Or do you think he's going to shoot other people? You think so? You think this no-nonsense thing you're talking about, it's not some nebulous thing, it's violence. This no-nonsense thing is violence. So you think it's going to mete out violence on other people, but not you. Is that what you think? Let's get serious. This is one individual who kept Miguna, a bona fide Kenyan, in exile for 5 years. For 5 years. In defiance of court orders. Is that the person you want to be your president? And therefore, why do you then invoke the law when it comes to William Ruto? Why do you invoke it? That the law is disobeyed now and now. Matiang'I is said to be one of the dollar millionaires of Uhuru Kenyatta government. What did he produce? What did he produce? So you have a problem with some people who steal from you, but others, you give them a free pass. What kind of logic is that? Could you please run me through that logic so that I get it? What logic is that? What is it? We're told he's been working for the World Bank. We have a problem with this neoliberal approach to economic issues. How the World Bank, the IMF, Bretton Woods institutions are anti-people, part of our governance problems. We're told he's from DC or wherever, been working for the World Bank. You want to make him your president? What is the problem with you? What is the problem with you? Do you even care about your own well-being? Or let me ask, do you understand the problem? Do you even understand the problem? Do you? I don't think you do. You don't get it. You don't understand it. So I think the problem, we have to begin from appreciating what is the problem, what is our challenge, before we bother to look for the solution. Because you're not going to identify the solution until and unless you appreciate what is the crux of the matter. And from the conversations I'm hearing, we don't appreciate what the problem is with our society. We think our problem is about personalities. Hence, this pervasive messiah complex all over the place. You think politics is so simplistic. You just get somebody at the helm, voila, all will be well. You think so? Corruption will disappear with Matiang'I. He's a no-nonsense guy. No, we're obsessed with bullies. Bullies. Autocrats. And at the same time, we wax lyrical about this beautiful constitution. But we celebrate bullies and autocrats. In a democracy, do people think like that? Violators of human rights? Serial, constitutional breakers, we celebrate them. Matiang'I, as I learned Dibal, in a normal society, would be having court cases. As we speak now, would be having court cases. His name will not be featuring in a presidential race. So we are not a normal society. We'd be having court cases, hopping from one court to another court, defending himself. He is lucky that the people who are in power now are like him. But if they were different, he would not be featuring in a presidential race. He would actually stand the risk of going to jail for the things he did, the massacres, defiance of court orders, and those things he did. But he's lucky he was born and brought up in a society where impunity is celebrated and it's institutional. And therefore, even citizens, no matter how much violence you mete out to them, they will still celebrate you and even ask you to become their president so that you mete out more violence up to them. We deserve these politicians. We deserve William Ruto. Tibal, if Matiang'I was to run against William Ruto would take him to the cleaners. That is so basic and commonsensical. He will take him to the cleaners because they are both cynical people, only that William Ruto has got the instruments of power and he will use them to checkmate him. If they couldn't stop him when they had instruments of power with Uhuru Kenyatta, if he's his project, I don't understand how they are going to best him now that he's in power, no matter how enraged we are with William Ruto. He's a very cynical politician. Matiang'I is. So let's see how it's going to play itself out. I yield the ball.
Thank you.
Well done.
Spoken quite movingly there. Not after issues, just waking up our consciences, bro. We really do appreciate. Let's take Wanjiru. Wanjiru, over to you.
Good evening, Dibal, and thank you very much for organizing this platform where we can come and listen to, very, very good debates about what's happening in our country. I just want to take a different approach to my contribution, and I'm just looking at the current Kenyan political situation in respect to the Easter story. And I look at Jesus Christ for the sake of the Christians in the platform. You might, know this story very well. He did sacrifices himself for the salvation of humanity, and even though he did so many things that we read about, very good things, saving, raising people from the dead, feeding the multitude. He still got betrayed, especially by people who were very close to him. He was crucified. And my message to Matiang'I is Jesus was celebrated as he entered Jerusalem. On Palm Sunday, the crowds were singing Hosanna, Hosanna, praising Jesus. But on the Friday, he got crucified. We saw Mukisa Kitui, how he came in when he was, coming in and planning to vie for presidency. And we saw what happened just before he even got there. A lot of scandals, it was very ugly what happened to him. And he came in, he resigned from a job abroad to come and vie for presidency. What I can say in this case, Matiang'I is just entered Jerusalem and the crowds are singing Hosanna to him. But if he's not careful, he's going to go through betrayal. There might be a Judas in his camp who will betray him. And even those who are singing Hosanna, like Peter, denied Jesus, he might go down that route. So Kenya is a very, very unique country. We saw what happened to William Ruto. He was the chosen one, the savior in 2022. A lot of people sang praises for him. Those same people now are saying Ruto must go. So just like Weston said, sometimes we deserve what we get because we are very emotional as a country. We very emotional. We think emotionally. We vote emotionally, and then later on we start regretting. So I think it's a time that the country needs to sit down, interrogate all these people who are, aspiring to be presidents in the future, and ask these questions. In this kidney organ trafficking, what would Matiang'I do if he was president today? What would Gachagua do if he was president today? What would Kalonzo do if he was president today? What would they do? And why are they quiet now? And all these things, all the ills in the society that are happening now, why are they quiet? Why are they not offering solutions? Why are we listening to Gachagua every Sunday lamenting and uncovering all the ills of this government? Why is he not offering a solution? Why are these leaders not coming up and saying, this is where we are as a country, we have all these problems, these are the solutions we are proposing? Why are we not hearing these voices? Why are we only hearing people criticizing, people going on podiums and calling people names and criticizing government? When are we going to have people of, integrity come up and say, with the economy, we can propose this. With, whatever is happening, these are our solutions, these are our proposals, so that people can start interrogating and say, well, if these people become leaders in the future, I think they might be able to lead properly or better than the current government. But all we hear is people going, grabbing the microphone in churches and funerals and just criticizing and telling us, oh, huyu alifanya hivi, anafanya hivi, pesa inaibiwa, I don't know what. We don't need that. I think as a country moving forward, we don't need that. We need people to take those microphones and say, yes, the economy is not performing well. These are our proposals. I will land on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wajiro. Thank you for those sentiments. We really do appreciate it. Abdurrahman, if yes, you can actually just share your contribution as well briefly.
Thank you so much. I stand to represent the voice of a fairly younger generation. I'm a millennial. But we stand on the shoulders of giants who have come before us, the Professor Kawanjas, Kabandos of this world, Dr. James Nikal, and we actually see the sacrifices that you people make. Especially, I want to commend the approach that Dr. Nikal has taken on this kidney harvesting issue, and I want him to know that we have full confidence in his committee to have the full investigations disclosed to the people of Kenya, so that we get to know the center of where this tissue cross matching and all the testing that was happening and all that. We are obsessed with the presidency, but mine, I want to advise and also call on the fairly younger people who are politically conscious, as we've seen the previous year and the year we are in of our Lord, that if we were to be actively involved in politics and take other elective positions where key decisions are made, we can actually render this presidential position sort of irrelevant, so that even if we were the critical masses were to elect people of the names that have been mentioned here, we able to balance and to reverse if they were to lead our nation towards the direction that majority of people are not willing to take. So I want also to ask that those of us that have thought politics do not have an impact on their lives to reconsider the positions and join the ever-growing voices of youth and the fairly young at heart that are willing to see change in our country, to take these political positions so that we implement the change that we do need. I also call for a stronger people of integrity to fill institutions in our nation that need, as someone has mentioned before, that when our state is filled with people of integrity that steer the nation towards prosperity and able to counter evils that have been perpetrated by generations before us, then it doesn't matter who come up there and try to twist and to twist people in compromising the integrity. Then we're going to set the mood and the direction of our country towards prosperity, and to bequeath the generations that will come after us with a proper and a more revolutionized nation. Thank you so much, Dibal, for the beautiful work you're doing. We see you and we celebrate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abraham. We appreciate your sentiments as well. Keep on also contributing on the platform more and more. I want to hand over to Esther Nyonje. Esther Nyonje, right? Kindly be brief as well, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you, Dibal. I will start from asking you to include more women on your speakers panel, because for the last shows, it has been a highly dominated space by men. I'm wondering, where are the women for the legislators, for the governance experts, academia, and all that? So that's a call to you, to the show, Dibal. And my contribution is that we know that our country is usually highly continuously politically, right from the elections to the next elections. we are always in a political mode, and that's a sad thing, starting from the appointments of the PSS and the CSS and people in service delivery positions. It's all about the politics. And as much as we'll be told that it's politics, you need to, the violence, take it by force, and you need to fight for your positions, let us not forget that we are a country that is governed by rule of law and the constitution. Every aspect, be it be devolution, be it be public finance, there are structures that govern these aspects. And therefore, where is the other aspect of the social contract that people need service delivery, even if we're a political country? And speaking, I'm hearing about other names like Matiang'I coming up at this time. It's good to start having the conversation about alternative leadership, because many people are shying away from political positions because you know how expensive it is. So as we get into the conversation of alternative leadership, and I am not so happy about pointing out individuals at this time, because political alliances and formations are going to change. They say a day in politics is such a long time. By 2027, we'll have very different formations. So at this time, as a youth in this country, and I'm urging other fellow youth to organize in terms of agenda, and organize in terms of arming themselves in how are we going to make our political space less expensive, because that comes up to a responsible citizenry. It is when the president will be taking his hat, his cape, and his shirt campaigning, he will come to the people to ask for the votes. When the governors and the MCS, they will come to the people to ask for the votes. So the people should know that the power they have, and it is our responsibility in this space and beyond to pass this message to the people, to know that it is you who gives the politicians this power. Whatever we have today, whatever we're complaining today, is a reflection of what we chose in the ballot in 2022. So can we have a responsible citizenry that is going to make good decisions about their leaders in 2027? Because the politicians will align themselves. Can the people also arm themselves with responsibility and coming up with, because there's a high rate of also political intolerance that is coming up. What are we doing about this as we head into 2027? What are the electoral reforms as we head into? What are we doing to make our politics less expensive, so that we are not bribed, that we are not used as tools for politicians, but we're going to make responsible decisions? That is my take for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther, there for your sentiments. And yeah, we do acknowledge your frustration, and we'll work on it as well. I want just to hand over the mic to Joe Ogasigu. Joe, if you may also just share briefly your question or contribution. We need to wind up way beyond time. Joe, kindly get muted.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me a couple seconds to chime in my 2 cents. I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I think they say that a problem that is talked about is a problem that is half solved. So I think we're halfway there towards salvaging our country and providing solutions to what's affecting us all. The issue of Professor Matiang'I being pushed on the throats of Kenyans, it has been quite insensitive, because we saw him rule with Uhuru and Ruto. And we know for sure that if he becomes the next president of Kenya, he's just going to continue on the same path that Uhuru and then Ruto have taken us through. There are some Kenyans who want to see Uhuru and Ruto prosecuted for the crimes they've committed against, Kenyans. For sure, Dr. Fred Matiang'I is not going to be the guy to send those two to jail. He worked for them, and he was very efficient for them. He was actually their hammer and the sickle for making sure he silences dissent. And he was very effective, two-faced. He could tell the crowd, this is what's happening. But at the same time, he's doing something in the background that's completely opposite. So he is the best candidate. If you want the status quo of oppressing Kenyans to go on, he's the best candidate to carry on the job. There are so many people who disappeared under the tenure of Dr. Fred Matiang'I. We saw those strange fish floating on River Yala. I'm using the term strange fish in relation to the strange fruit that was growing on top of trees in the United States when they were under the apartheid regime of Jim Crow. So if you want to get away from one monster and be ruled by another monster, then I think we Kenyans we really have a long way to learn. We are really sick. We have some type of Stockholm syndrome that we need deliverance from. He kind of jeopardized the education system. The Kenyan education system started falling from when they took over, and it hasn't recovered yet. Right now, education system is in the pits. It's worse than when he took it over, and we need someone who's going to repair our education system. One way to attack a society is to make sure that you affect their education system, their food sovereignty, and then you affect their health. He was able to chop down the education system very well, and if we give him 5 years of our time, then we are not going to have a future for Kenya. My candidate that I'll be voting for when that time comes is and I've been asking this question, is who is in a position to prosecute and jail Mr. Uhuru or Mr. Ruto or Mr. Matiang'I? If you show any promise that you can prosecute those, I want them to go through due process, and everyone who ruled under them and everyone who has committed crimes against Kenya, they need to be prosecuted, and they need to be, we need to recover whatever we can recover. The other issue is who is going to recover the monies that have been stolen from Kenya and stashed, those billions that are stashed abroad. Is your candidate, does he show any promise to recover those stolen billions and repatriate them back to Kenya? If he cannot, then that's not the candidate that we want. We want someone who stands for law and order, someone who stands for justice. Is Matiang'I able to deliver that? And he's been accused of becoming a dollar billionaire within a very short time without having a single industry or a single product, a single book under his name. I think I will stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Lastly, let's hear you talk about Joe. I liked it. I can connect that with what Weston was saying regarding what's our problem. So could it be also we as Kenyans were suffering from the Stockholm syndrome, right? Thank you for highlighting that. Let's just hear from Kitty. Briefly, Kitty. I know also you got a streak of politician in you, so don't hold the time here. Briefly, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Adabal. I will cut to the chase. I have listened to this Twitter space from the beginning, and I want to congratulate you for the quality of the panelists you brought on board. Brilliant, fine, polished public intellectuals. But I think I'm a little disappointed by how they contradict themselves. Because when you hear someone like Professor Herman Manyora, whom I think has done a good work both in the academia and in the practice of politics, in attempting to redirect this country towards its better angels, actively advocating for a Matiang'I presidency, it shocks conscience. And let me say this. It is President Ronald Reagan who said that every politician wants to say that they were born in a log cabin that they built themselves. And that I think also it is Martin Luther King Jr. who says that, no, it is not Martin, it is John Bercow, the former speaker for UK, who says that every man can endure adversity, but to test a man's character, give him power. We have seen how Dr. Matiang'I has used power when he was in a place of responsibility. When when our heroes like Professor Manyora, Senator Onyonka et al. Are telling us what a wonderful alternative Dr. Matiang'I would be, we must remember that the problem we have in the education sector called the CBC was brought in when we had Dr. Matiang'I there. Or even when he was there, he didn't engender, because part of the outcry then was that there was very little stakeholder management, and the government was bulldozing its way. Right now, the future of this country is hanging on the balance in part because Matiang'I was holding a place of responsibility. I moved to Interior when he was at Interior. And it is when we have always known that when a government is put in place, there are three critical things that a government must do: preserve the right to life, right to liberty, and as Americans put it, pursuit of happiness, which is the right to own property. That under Dr. Matiang'I, when he was at Interior, we saw how he deployed the state security apparatus to destroy the dwelling places of people, sometimes in contravention of court orders. And that brings me to my third point, that these elegant panelists you brought on board are describing, diagnosing the problem of Kenya as the colonial enterprise infrastructure that has endured to date, and that none of the presidents we have had before has had the courage to dismantle it. Kibaki attempted, I think, in the first 2 years of his presidency, and then he was overrun by the ethnic cabal around him. So my question is, and I think maybe a food for thought, that when Matiang'I was working for Uhuru, and I think it is the former MP for Nyeri, Kabando Kabando, who said that Uhuru would send people to Matiang'I. So therefore, Matiang'I, as a powerful government minister, then was acted in furtherance of that colonial edifice, which was, and that colonial edifice was to dispossess the people, to harass the people, to extract, to accumulate primitively. So the question is, and again, I'm putting this out as a food for thought, to what extent is Matiang'I presidency going to help us dismantle this colonial edifice that has ensured that even governments that come into office very promisingly quickly turn against the people and begin to brutalize those people? You know that Kibaki presidency was very brutal, because that is when under Mishuki we gunned young people down in central Kenya mercilessly without the benefit of due process. Remember, under Uhuru and under Matiang'I, during the post-election period of 2017, they gunned people down in Kisumu, and bodies were put in the lake with body bags. And in Nairobi, it was worse. The violence by the state under Matiang'I was inconceivable. And that is how the colonial edifice worked. So the question is, to what extent is a Matiang'I presidency going to help us make a fundamental departure from that? And maybe as I conclude, in respect and of the privilege you've allowed me to speak, that what about if we look for a candidate who believes in law and order, who does not have to be no-nonsense, as Professor Manyora puts it? Because again, I agree with someone said that the no-nonsense we are talking about is someone who would come in, disregard the law, and brutalize the people. Thank you. That was my 2 cents. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Kitty. I really appreciate your sentiments as well. We want to bring it to a close, and I can see lots of our panelists as well. They've stepped off. I think we've gone way beyond time. Just looking at time, it is 12 o'clock right now. But I want to appreciate still Haman Manyora and Professor Masharia and Dr. James Rikal, who is still here. You've had the sentiments of Adul Raham, appreciating you as well. James Chikal, we are also looking and keeping our eyes peeled on your dockets to make sure that the issue of the organ harvesting is tackled once and for all in this country. I want just to give you just a few minutes to give your closing remarks, sir, if you may. Dr. over to you, Dr. James Chikal.
For this opportunity, I think I hear from young people that really the change we need is very drastic, and it should look at issues and not personalities. I think that because I've also realized in politics, we tend to say who will lead us instead of asking the problem that needs to be solved. I think we must move from who to what is the problem to be solved. I think that's what I'll summarize. About the organ harvesting is something, as we have said, we have to look at it in great detail. I think as much as time is of essence, accuracy of the facts will be more important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. James Chikal. Thank you also for being amazingly patient. Really do appreciate. I want to just also give this mic to Professor Macharia Munene. Thank you for hanging on as well. Your closing remarks, sir, if you may. Kindly unmute.
Okay, thank you very much. I think a lot of things have been said. We are living in very exciting times. We need to be open-minded, irrespective of where one stands. We have 2 years to go, at least constitutionally, before we have to vote for or against particular candidates. And a lot of them are going to bring themselves up. So to prejudge and say it's so and so or not so and so may not be very wise, because then when the votes come in and they are the opposite of what you expected, then you start complaining and saying something happened, though did not happen. So being open-minded, it's an exciting time, and people should ask questions. The fact that something has been said by a prominent person, it does not necessarily make it correct or so. So the good part is that in a forum like this one, the Bar and Benji, you are providing very good service to the country for people to speak their minds and point out when things are going wrong or going right, whichever way. So that's my closing remarks. Let me say something that some people will be very annoyed with, because sometimes I've had some of these things, not once but many times. The 2007 election, we have yet to understand what happened. With all the information, the little that we know is that Kibaki won that election very narrowly. But a lot of funny stories have been told about it repeatedly, so that they sound as if they are true because they are repeated. And yet, there is a lot of investigation that needs to be done. The little that was done by Kriegler came to the conclusion there was nothing bad happened at the KICC, which was the official reason. And that's my end remarks of that.
Thank you, Prof. Really appreciate your sentiments and your remarks as well. I want just to find out if Haman Manyora is still on. Haman, I want to give you a sporting chance for giving your closing remarks, sir. Thank you for hanging on. I know it's cold wherever you are. Yes.
Thank you, Deva. Thank you for giving me this minute or so. I am particularly happy to listen to Weston, Shilaho, and Kidi, my good friend. I want to tell them that we had a clearly defined problem, or should I say topic, that Matiang'I had landed in town. What did we have to say about Matiang'I? Did he stand a chance? And we said the things we said about him. Just to tell Kiddy and Weston, the alternative would have been to tell the bar, look here, the bar, Matiang'I is just like Ruto, so please, let's close this debate. Let's meet here on Sunday next week, come with another topic. I want to finish by saying this, and I have mentioned it today, that within the context of what we call a democratic process, a process that then gives Kenyans an opportunity to choose a president every 5 years. The choices to the people of Kenya are defined by history, by the system, by what Kidi calls the colonial edifice. That choice is limited to Matiang'I, Ruto, Eugene, Gachagua, Kalonzo Musyoka, Natembean. That is a choice that Kenyans are given by the system. We know all that. We are intellectually powerful enough to know that. And we know the band, Kiddy Massive, listen, and my friend Weston, that to dismantle a system is not easy. A system is dismantled through a revolution. Whether that revolution be violent or not, whether that revolution be bloody or not, but it is a revolution. A country may be lucky if that is a revolution of the mind, as it has happened in places like El Salvador and a bit of Senegal and one or two other places, where the people can get to the conclusion that I've mentioned this evening, that people can conclude that these leaders we have cannot see them through the challenges they face, and completely reject the status quo politicians and so-called leaders and look for somebody like Manyora who can straighten things up. But until that time comes, and as we work towards that time, we are merely saying, of the choices available, do we have an individual who has some track record of doing things? And within the context of that limited choice, then the name Matiang'I stands out. That's all we are saying. We are not oblivious of the fact that the system has given us a very limited choice. And for us to break and get into a new Kenya, we will need something like a revolution. Who knows? People trusted Ruto. He was a savior. He has brought us where we are. Supposing we tried Matiang'I and he brings us where Ruto has brought, who knows? That might be what is required in this country, because I do know that hopelessness can breed the sort of anger that is necessary to usher in a new Kenya through a revolution. I just wanted to point out to Weston and the Kiddy that we are aware and we know that we are talking about the status quo, a system that we are using now, but that we deserve better. And one day we will get that better, because we continuously work towards getting that is better, that we deserve as the people of this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Harmon Manyora. I appreciate your sentiments as well. And thank you for hanging on until this time. I know most of them have dropped off because we've gone way beyond time, and you always advise me as well, we shouldn't really go way beyond time. We want to wind up at that, but let me just hand it over to Benjamin Dolo just to say a few words as well before we wind up. Benji, over to you.
Dibal, my brother, we are actually into Monday morning. It's quite unbelievable for me. These spaces have become a weekly ritual of intellectual rigor, of interrogation. I'm very impressed by every contribution made here this evening. Just to commend everybody for sobriety, for research, for ability to communicate, to articulate. Esther, I hear you, and it's not like we are trying to make this only a manel. No, this is a space that is very available and open to ladies. For some statistical reason, you find that there are very few ladies that put themselves forward, but I believe that we can change that progressively as we go. Thank you for your own contribution, for your own, together with Wanjiru and others, for your own curiosity and just intellectual acumen. We really appreciate that. Diba, let me sign off by saying that in every debate, and I'm in very many debates, online, offline, on TV, on radio, on podcasts, etc., you will notice one thing, Diba, and I'm not here to campaign for anybody, some are even dead, that every time we're talking about good governance and every time an example comes up on where we've gotten it right or where we have begun to get it right, the name Kibaki comes up. And I was just saying this when it occurred to me that at the height of 2007-2008 violence, President Kibaki was advised to deploy the military and he adamantly refused. Now, why I find this so interesting, Dibali, is because Kibaki for many years was in Kanu and then he was in opposition. And it just baffles me how he rejected Kanu like in totality. Kanuism, Kanu culture, Kanu stuff, Kanu excesses. And so as we look at candidates and as we look at looking at fielding different options and evaluating different options, I think, again, as I said at the beginning of this broadcast, the issue of character, the issue of moderation, the issue of just somebody being very, very measured, etc. There's a lot to learn from Kibaki, and it's a pity that we do not have maybe the kind of Carnegie School of Endowment and School of Government where we actually interrogate leadership deeply and look at our own examples and see what we can learn from, and therefore take from those lessons and say, what should the next candidate look like? Because it would not be fair to call one leader a dictator and then usher in another dictator. So I think today's was one of the most vibrant discussions. Very long, of course. It's past midnight. A big thank you to you, Dibal, for your patience, your guidance, your leadership, your temperament. It's actually what makes these spaces to stay alive. God bless everybody. Happy Easter. Be safe. No drinking and driving. It's raining. Look out for a brother. Look out for a sister. And let's do this again next Sunday. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Benji. Thank you so much, guys. We need to go here. And I want to thank our panelists again. I'll be released if I don't thank you, Professor Masharia, for hanging on as well. Haman Manyora, thank you for hanging on. In absentia, Honorable Richard Onyonka, the Senator of Namibia. We had as well Dr. James Chikal as well, who has been here until the end. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I take it such an honor, Daktari. I really do appreciate, by the way. I want to thank also Professor Peter Kagwanja, who is here, Professor Karuti Kanyinga, Kabando. This gentleman, they've made the show such a treat today with the luminary insight that we've really gotten today. I really want to thank you so much. And as always, we wind up the show by saying, in essentials, unity, in non-essentials, liberty, in all things, charity. Kenya really stands at a dangerous intersection now where the value of life is being weighed against profit, power, and political convenience. And from this haunting cries of, well, Mary Hill, Mukuru's missing, of course, to the chilling silence of Shakahola's mass grave. And we can talk about the sterile holes also of institutions like what I've just mentioned, Mary Hill, what they're doing. We are reminded that our nation's wounds are not just physical, they're deeply moral. And I think that has been remarkably showcased here today. And there is also a remarkable concurrence on such an issue today. And as leaders posture and campaign, the people watch, wary, but they're not defeated, as you can hear from the sentiments here. Matiang'i's returns, of course, stars the pot, yes, but can be the question everyone is asking, can he be the surgeon this country needs, or just another must undertake of broken promises? And you've heard his sentiments here today. And I want to thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you to you, Weston. Thank you to you, Kidi. Thank you to Esther. Thank you to Abdurrahman. Thank you to Abdi Nur as well, Alenga. I can't also forget Dr. Ignatius, all the way from Dubai. We really do appreciate it. Thank you. Let's do it next time. On Sunday, every Sunday, we're here where we tackle, of course, matters politics, matters economics and social governance in this country. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for being amazingly patient until this time. Today we've gone way beyond time, I must say, but I want to thank you so much. Let's do it next Saturday. May God bless you as always, and may you be a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. May He bless your water, and may He bless your bread as well. Thank you. Master, peace and love be multiplied to you. Good evening.